I am currently a month into exclusively using manual focus cine lenses for everything that I do. And already I feel that I've worked out a few things that do and do not work for me and my work. Before I start, I'd just like to say that for maybe 90% of what I have filmed, I could not imagine now going back to an autofocus system. Manually focusing with a lens with a nice long focus throw has truly impressed me with how much more reliable footage I am getting. So I'm not saying these are the golden rules for nailing manual focus as a solo content creator, but so far for me, this system has been very easy. First up, I'd highly suggest getting a good, decent on-camera monitor. This is a 5-inch and it works pretty great for me. I think a 6-inch might be perfect, but I do have access to a 7-inch. However, personally, I feel it's just a little bit too big for my style of shooting. However, no matter what, a good camera monitor as your first purchase before any cine lens, I think would be a really good choice. Even when I was still using autofocus systems, being able to have focus peaking on the monitor turned on to see when autofocus jumped in and out of focus was still incredibly useful, and it's just a lot easier for framing, low light, especially for certain angles. It works for my style of shooting, and I would highly suggest a good monitor before any cine lens. Next up was turning on focus peaking. Now, I've read a lot of reviews about how focus peaking isn't to be fully trusted and to be used more as a vague guideline, and to be honest, I'd agree with that. For those of you who aren't familiar with focus peaking, to really dumb it down, focus peaking adds a coloured line around any edges or details of your shot that are in focus. Normally you have a few different colours to choose and options of how thick those lines can be, but depending on what colour content you're shooting, this can still be a little tricky to see. But combined with a decent sized monitor that supports LUTs, turn focus peaking into a real useful tool, and I'll explain this in a moment. As I can record internally everything I need on the Fujifilm X-H2S, I do not have to worry about what is coming out of the HDMI port to my monitor. However, my monitor, as well as having its own focus peaking system, also lets me change to the color of my display, to mono, or to just show the outlines of my focus peaking, so I can completely ignore the image and just see the outlines of what's in sharp. This makes things really easy. However, if you get a monitor that does not allow you to change the color of your preview, you should have a monitor that lets you load up LUTs. If you load up a black and white LUT, then turn on your monitor's focus peaking, it will make things incredibly contrasting and very obvious about what is in focus and what is not, without affecting my final image, just giving me incredibly reliable manual focus. Third on the list was finding a way to zoom in on my monitor. I have played with using both a camera FN button and a monitor touch option, and so far I've decided I like to have access to both, depending on what's easiest to get to given my current camera angle. But to really nail manual focus, even on a slightly moving subject, being able to really closely look at my subject just made it that much easier. Finally, and this isn't something I'm anywhere near mastering yet, is experience. The more hours I put into manually focusing, the more I notice my eye or muscle memory detecting which direction my lens needs to roll to correct focus. And with cine lenses having such a long focus throw, the transition of focus was always smooth and far more pleasing rather than the too slow or too fast way autofocus systems seem to love to perform. But tutorial aside, I came away from this month with a few thoughts. First up, both of Fujifilm's MK cine lenses have a back focus ring. I am very sure I'm setting this correctly, but for event work like this, where I'm moving around a lot, adjusting this took more time than I liked for a mostly handheld rig. These lenses were just too long and unbalanced to suit my current style of shooting. While the image quality out of them is phenomenal, at the moment they're not quite for me. Next up during the shoot, I was not comfortable. I was constantly focused on focusing and very sure I was doing okay at best. Using a monitor zoomed in on my subject's face was fine for tracking, and I was fortunate enough that all this job really required was pretty B-roll. But my point is, while all these tips from the start of the video felt like a good idea, they didn't feel flawless during filming. However, the results say otherwise. I was shooting everything at just under T3, and as I mentioned, I was very worried that I wasn't nailing focus. But the results once I got back to the office really surprised me. This event had a lot of creative lighting and smoke machines, which, no matter what, make focusing hard. But the point I'm trying to make here is while manual focusing a moving subject with cine lenses was nerve-wracking, I came away happy with the results, and I feel very encouraged to encourage you to give it a try. First of all, yes, I am rearranging my studio while filming this, but second of all, after filming that job the following week, I needed to film a workshop. This workshop was relatively boring, and I unfortunately cannot show the footage of it, but it was a group of people sitting around a table in a hotel conference room listening to a presenter with some interviews happening. Now, I am very comfortable not using cinema lenses for interviews as a one-man band, having to manage sound, lighting, ask the questions, all of that, while having to move focus if someone's shifting around a little bit. And I like a shallow depth of field for my interviews. It was definitely still an autofocus lens kind of job. So for my interviews, I'm very comfortable sticking with autofocus lenses. However, for the B-roll, the sitting around the table in these boring workshops, I decided to also use another autofocus lens. And what was interesting, going back to autofocus after just a week of using pretty much only cinema lenses and manual focus, I found this incredibly frustrating. An autofocus system does not know if I want to focus on a pen or the hand or a piece of paper or the back of the head. You can shift that point around, but as things get finer and more precise, it struggles more and more to know exactly what you're after. And yes, autofocus systems, you can change them from being fast to react or slow to react and fast to change or slow to change, but that's quite a lot of settings you need to change in camera if shots or that focusing style needs to change consistently. Having manual focus knows exactly what I want to focus on instantly every time at the speed I like. And this has been on my mind a bit, in a positive way. I was nervous and unsure about shifting to cine lenses, but after maybe 6 hours of shooting, I feel far more confident in it. And honestly, even more excited for every job coming up. There is a precision and reliability to manual focus. But I do have some things to work on. My footage, for the most part, was very stationary. I love my handheld B-roll rig. It very much works for me. But I need to find a way, as a one-man band, to add more cinematic movements to my shots while still keeping focus nailed. Plus, I still haven't yet dipped my toes into color grading. I have a lot to work on. If you'd like to help support me on this journey, I have listed all the gear I use down in the description below, each of which is an affiliate link. It won't cost you an extra to buy these items, but to do so does support me. Failing that, like, share and subscribe, you know the deal. This is merely another step, and I hope you'll enjoy this journey with me. If you have any questions or fears about nailing focus with cine lenses, please reach out, as I'd love to make this process easier for you than it might end up being for me.